What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, we are going over Decentraland's mana as its price is starting to see a setup that seems as if it could be extremely bullish. So I'm going to be telling you guys exactly how I'm going to be playing it, the way in which I'm going to go about it, my predictions, and more. So of course, let's go ahead. Let's just skip the BS. Let's skip the fluff. And let's get straight into the good stuff. So, paying attention to Mana's price, of course, we did see a 72% fall from peak to trough, right? So, on November 25th of last year, we saw that everything was going real good. And from that point forward, everything started going real bad, right? Now, this was no surprise to anyone. We knew that the entire metaverse, especially Mana and Sandbox and all of those super big metaverse platforms and cryptos, they were going to have to, see this stuff cool down, right? We saw this huge hype, this huge excitement, and that is usually always followed by some type of retracement. And it does seem as if that retracement has now come to an end and they may be ready to resume their previous glory. Now, the way in which we needed to go about this, though, was looking for three confirmations. Confirmation number one was the breaking of the downtrend. Of course, we can see point number one, point number two, and point number three, which did establish this as a trend line. You want 3 points on a trend to really establish it as a trend line, okay? 2 is okay, 3 is much better. Now, once we broke this trend line, that was first step number one. Step number two was the back testing of support, in which we saw the breakout, the price came back down, it held support on top of that trend line, and continued back to the top side. Confirmation number three was going to be that we needed to see a new macro high set. What that looks like is we set this high on the trend line, and we wanted to see that we were capable of working above that point. And as you can see, we did just that. We worked our way back up, and we set a new high back up towards $3.50. And now that we have seen that happen, we are now starting to prepare to set up a trade, because those are our three-step confirmations to say that it is much more likely that we are to continue into an uptrend at this point than we are to see this thing just absolutely crash back down past these previous lows. So the way in which I'm going to go about this is that we're going to start at looking at, just structural technical analysis and then using our indicators to either kind of confirm or just kind of make a counter argument towards what the structure says. Well, the structure at this point is telling me that we do have something of an inverse head and shoulders forming here, in which we put in this left shoulder, we put in the head, and then we put in a right shoulder at a very similar area to establish our neckline. As you can see, this level at $3.40 has very clearly been established as a very key level as a rejective high, and we can also see that this level at $2.70 has been established as a rejective low. And considering the fact that we saw two interactions here of such, in which we then put in this midpoint, that gives us your left shoulder, your head, and your right shoulder, which is an inverse head and shoulders. Now, the way in which you will kind of gauge exactly how to go about this is by looking at the distance from your neckline, which is at about $3.40, down to the bottom of your head, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and you're just going to drag it all the way down. Now, I go into the very bottom of which we closed. I don't go all the way down to the wicks. I like to go to the closes because that provides us with a lot more of a, much more of an average, right? You can see that the average close and the average volume was around this area, not down here. So I'm going to then take that distance and apply it to the neckline. And what that gives me is my breakout target. And what that says is that there is a technical breakout from the structural technical analysis of this inverse head and shoulders sitting up towards $6.21, which does look like the price growing from where we are now of right around 96%, which is dramatic and drastic. But considering the fact that we are seeing a very strong, large retracement and, the recovery from that, it's not out of the picture, okay? So what does this mean for us? Well, the way in which you go about it, inverse head and shoulders, of course, is looking for your breakout line. Where does this thing start to confirm that this move is going to happen? And that comes from your rejective high, which sits towards $3.40. We need to get above $3.40 and get at least one, ultimately two daily closes above this level and proving that we are capable of holding it as support before we get too excited. Optimally speaking, what I would like to see is that on the daily charts, we get a close of a daily candle above $3.40. From there, I want to see at least 2 or 3, maybe even 4-hour closes sitting above that level to say that we can hold this as support and we will continue back to the top side. So overall, until we're capable of seeing that happen, I'm not going to be buying, but I am going to have my cash prepared in order to do so. Now, do our indicators support a move of this nature? Let's kind of take a look at the daily indicators to say whether this is realistic or not. Well, looking at the daily MACD, you guys can see that we were aiming to see some type of bearish convergence in which we were looking to see that blue moving average crossing below our orange one. Well, that's not really what happened. What we can see happen is that our blue line, let me zoom all the way in, our blue line came right up to this orange line. It bounced off of it as we did establish some support here and is looking to continue in the opposite direction to resume bullish momentum. That is a fantastic sign that if we're able to continue back up again past our rejective high, we definitely may be seeing a strong continuation back into some bullish movements here. Looking at our stochastic RSI, one thing you can see is that as we have been consolidating over the last, about a week or so, right here, it gave our stochastic RSI time to reset back to the bottom side, in which will allow us to then continue back to the top side, as we did get that bullish blue-orange cross there. Now, even in looking at something like our basic RSI, one thing in which we can see is that we are still seeing some pretty strong room to the upside for growth. Now, of course, we are in the upper half of our RSI, so growth may be relatively limited, but you can see that as we did bounce off of this 50 level on the RSI, we are pretty strongly continuing to the top side with as much room, maybe 20 to 30 points on the RSI, which definitely says that we have enough room to the top side to execute on a very strong move. So considering the fact that we do have all of this bullishness on the technical indicators, that tells us that this move is definitely executable and that we may be able to see that happen. So the way in which I'm going to go about it is if we do get a daily close and a few 4-hour closes above this level of 340, and it shows to me that we are capable of holding it as support and continuing, I will be opening a trade. But I'm actually going to be setting a stop loss down here towards $2.60. Now, the reason I'm going to still be setting a stop loss is because we are still below our macro Fibonacci zone. What that's going to be is we're going to take a Fibonacci and draw it from our all-time high on January 25th, or on November 25th, and draw that all the way down to our point in which we put in this low around $1.74 on January 22nd. Now, what we know is that this is our macro Fibonacci between the 0.786 and the 0.618, which is a price of 456 to 370. And what I know is that we have a typicality of if we are going to see a dead cat bounce, we will see a high, we will see a low, a huge price swing back into this zone, and then the collapsing of the price back down to either the range low in which we set, or even possibly a lower low. And since that is still on the table, and since that is still within the realm of possibilities, I don't necessarily think that's what we're going to see as a dead cat bounce and a huge correction to the downside, but I am still going to limit my downside potential by establishing a stop loss below our most recent macro low in order to prevent myself from seeing some type of collapse of that nature. Because we could either see the price absolutely take off in this direction and still crash, or at this point where we are right now, we still could see some type of reversal in which we come up, let's say this happens, in which we come up, we establish some type of, maybe even a double top high, and then we start to collapse back to the downside. And for both of those reasons, I do want to protect myself from that by establishing that $2.60 stop loss, because at that point, if we were to lose $2.60, we've lost this most recent low here. We've now established another lower low, and the idea is that at that point, we may come back down all the way to our bottom side macro Fibonacci, which could look like a fall as low as $2.27. And of course, I want to limit myself from seeing, possible losses of another 15 to even 25%. So my current game plan at the moment, again, we're looking for that clearing of 340, support establishment with a daily close and a few 4-hour closes. At that point in which I do start that trade, my breakout target is going to be back up towards $6.29 with the stop loss established around $2.60 there. So of course, that's my game plan, and that's the reason why I am getting a bit more bullish, is because our indicators say that this move is possible. And whenever you combine indicators with bullish structural technical analysis, that is usually a good setup to see some pretty strong growth in the market. Now, of course, it does really come down to, does the market allow this to happen, and will Bitcoin really start to make a stronger move to the upside and really start to work its way up? If Bitcoin does start to collapse, say back to $41, $42, $40,000, do expect that Mana is going to follow at some point, and we're probably not going to see this thing play out in this fashion in which we're hoping to. But this is a very, very bullish setup, and I hope you guys do appreciate me sharing it with you all as it does form. Now, of course, I will update you as this thing does play out, but if you do want updates as soon as they do happen, go down to the link in the description in which I did post my Patreon, and you can see exactly the trades I make. We do daily live streams and much more. So of course, I hope you guys did appreciate today's video, and I will see you all next time. Peace.